backfield. Can they do it again? Yes, they can!
And the catch is made by Taj Washington. Touchdown, USC.
Blocked by Embiid! Timmy, yes!
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. This is your host, Ryan Coyle. As always, little bit of a different, unconventional type show today, just due to some holiday travel and whatnot. Not able to line up our schedules, me and Joe, this week. But don't worry, we still got you covered. I'll be breaking down my stuff, and Joe sent in some separate videos as well, giving you his breakdowns on the game. So a little bit of a untraditional style than we're used to, but we're still making it happen, and we're still here to give you the key info for this special episode, which is the 2022 college football playoff preview. The semifinals coming up this Saturday on New Year's Eve. Two really good games with Michigan and TCU. We'll be breaking down that one first in the 2-3 matchup, and then the 1-4 matchup between Georgia and Ohio State. Really excited for that one as well. So as always, we'll be breaking it down, giving you our keys to the game, as well as our predictions. Who's going to win, who's going to cover the spread, and the over-under prediction as well. So look forward to second last episode here for the college football season. We're also doing our college basketball stuff as well, getting into kind of full swing over that. Took last week off with no games really over the Christmas weekend, taking this weekend off just to focus on the college football again, and then we'll be getting back into full swing on college basketball next week on Thursday for our regularly scheduled episode, as well as be doing another episode just breaking down the college football playoff national title game, which will be that Monday. So as always, looking forward to getting back into it and breaking their stuff down. Like I said, I'll go first with my stuff, and then we'll cut over to Joe's predictions and thoughts as well. So with as always, we usually would do the top 5 games of the week and give you some pretty thorough in-depth breakdowns on all those. This week, we're going to kind of do it a little bit different. Got the keys to the game for Michigan, and then I'm going to go through the keys to the game for TCU, and then I'll be giving you my take on the spread, over-under, and as well as the outright winner. So we have number 2 Michigan at 13-0, ran through this year's schedule, including a beatdown of Ohio State in the big game up north. That led to a 13-0 record, as well as a victory over Purdue in the Big Ten title game. They'll be playing number 3 TCU, this year's Cinderella darling team of college football, who finished at 12-1, lost in the Big 12 title game in a really good battle to Kansas State. This is a 4 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Michigan comes in as 7.5-point favorites, over under 58.5. My keys to the game in this one, I'm going to go for Michigan. It's going to be stopping the run. The Wolverines have been great on defense all year, pretty much a top 5 unit in most metrics and most statistics in the nation. And they've been really great against the run all season, only allowing 85.2 yards per game on the ground, which is 3rd best in the country. They face a TCU offense that averages 200 yards per game on the ground, though, this season. And that offense features a really good running back in Kendre Miller, who ran for over 1,300 yards this year, 17 touchdowns, and 6.2 yards per carry. A real big-time explosive back. If Miller is able to get those big chunk runs, hit some 6-7 yard runs, get the TCU offense and Max Duggan into 2nd and 3rd and manageable, that's going to really help TCU and give them a shot to pull off the upset in this one. And then even if Miller, like we've seen him do a bunch this year, pop off a few explosive runs, maybe even a long game-breaking touchdown, that's really going to make this team hard to defend. Take a lot of pressure off Duggan, who doesn't really have, outside of Quentin Johnson, arguably the best receiver in the country. But outside of him, not much weapons in the passing game that can be relied on. If Michigan's able to just make this TCU team one-dimensional, they should be able to win this one and potentially even cover as well. So the key to the game for me, for Michigan in this football game, is stopping the run, which they've done all year, but they're facing maybe the best running back they've seen yet this season. So that's my key to the game for Michigan. My key to the game for TCU is going to be the ball security of Max Duggan. For a TCU team that seems to be the luckiest team in college football this year, maybe you could compare them to, for college basketball fans, the Providence of college basketball last year. They just seem to always catch every break along the way. If you watch and follow the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings of the NFL this year, just pulling out last second and come from behind victories all year has kind of been their MO. The lack of turnovers from Max Duggan has really played a key role in their success. He's thrown only 4 picks the entire year and had a Heisman-esque season. Now he's playing the best defense he's seen all year. The Michigan defense that's forced 12 interceptions this year. And Duggan plays with a gunslinger mentality, and I think he's gotten away with some stuff. Looking back at some of his previous stats back in like 2019, he threw 10 interceptions. He's really cut down on those turnovers, but I think he's had some lucky breaks along the way. Now facing the best defense he's seen all year. Kansas State has a nice defense, but Michigan's a different animal. If he finds a way to go out there and turn the ball over one or two times, Michigan is just going to bury them, win this game easily. So I think the ball security for Max Duggan in this one is going to be huge for TCU. And if he's able to limit his turnovers and especially throw no interceptions, which he's done a pretty good job of all year, they're going to have a real shot at the end in this one. So Max Duggan's ball security, that is my key to the game for TCU. So now we go to my prediction for this one. I'm going to take Michigan to move on and go to the national title game. Excuse me. 28-24 here over TCU. So we go TCU plus 7.5, under 58.5. It's kind of the message of the show, I think, for most of the season with me and Joe's predictions on TCU. It seemed like they just found ways to keep winning and winning and winning just week after week. But it did seem like that glass slipper would fall off eventually. It fell off in the Big 12 title game. I think they're a little out of magic, a team that first year under Sonny Dykes, great year, historic season for the program, maybe the best season in program history. But I think they were definitely like a year or two ahead of schedule, where a year or two from now, more talent, more years with this coaching staff, better players, better recruits coming in through whatever the freshmen or the transfer portal. I think we could definitely see them back on the stage again. But this is a team that has really gotten lucky throughout the year. Has been aided by one of the better receivers in the country, Quentin Johnson. Now they're playing this loaded Michigan defense that I think is just going to find a way to kind of take him out of the game in this one. I just think TCU has shown great fight all year, which is why I'm picking them to cover. But I just think this Michigan team is better right now. They had their taste of the college football playoff last year when they got beat down by Georgia. I think they come back in this one with a little bit of revenge from last year's game on their mind in the playoffs and find a way to go back to the national title game for the first time since I don't know off the top of my head, not during my lifetime. So we're going to go with Michigan 28, TCU 24. So TCU plus the 7.5 and under 58.5. And now we will go over to Joe for his thoughts on the game before we break down the Ohio State-Georgia game.
All right. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate from all of us Beef Up Front. This week, Coyle probably already said, just weren't able to record, both have different schedules. I'm going out of town for a couple of days, so giving you my picks right now. Key to the game for Michigan here against TCU. It's the first game we're previewing, the Fiesta Bowl. Number 2, Michigan 13-0. Number 3, TCU 12-1. Michigan 7.5 point favorite, over under 58.5. For me, the key for Michigan is J.J. McCarthy, actually. Blake Corum will not be playing. They do have a great backup with Edwards playing, but the onus of this game, the focus, the burden will be on J.J. McCarthy. He needs to be the reason that Michigan goes to the title game, plain and simple. Michigan's biggest strength is still their offensive line and their run game, and they're going to still try to do that. If I was TCU, you got to focus on trying to stop the run and make McCarthy throw the football. He's only 71st in the nation in passing yards. He's had 6 games with less than 200 yards passing, and there really hasn't been a time that he has been the sole reason for Michigan winning. He's kind of like Stetson Bennett light in a way. If the onus is put on him, it'll be interesting to see if Michigan can still move the ball. TCU's defense, though, is, kind of soft. Not obviously as good as some other defenses they played in the Big Ten. But switching gears here to TCU, the key for them is going to be that the Horned Frogs need another receiver to step up, not named Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson has 18 more receptions than Darius Davis, who is second on the team, and Tay Barber has 310 less yards receiving than Quentin Johnson. He's second on the team in receiving yards. And this was all with Quentin Johnson having a banged-up ankle, basically playing on one leg for what felt like the entire second half of the season. If TCU doesn't have another receiver that steps up, it's kind of seemed like their offense a lot of times has been like, F it, fuck it, Quentin Johnson's down there somewhere. Hopefully he can make a play. If they lock him up and no other receivers are coming out big for TCU, it's going to be a long game. But this rest period is going to be massive for Quentin Johnson. He's had a month off actually given time to rest his ankle properly. Now for my breakdown here, I have Michigan, after saying all that, winning this game 27-21. I do have TCU covering that 7.5 point spread. I'm taking the under, however. I just think Michigan's defense is too good to allow TCU to really put up like 50, 60 points. And they aren't exactly built to, I know, now obviously I'm contradicting myself because that Ohio State game, they, put up a ton of points. But they're not, normally not the team that's going to put up 50, 60 against a Power 5 team like this. I can see this being a grind out game, and I know, I'm saying this, but almost every semifinal has been a blowout. So who knows what's going to happen there. However, I just think TCU, the way their season's been going, they're not going to get blown out. They might, not be in control the whole game. Like Michigan might be able to dominate the game with tempo and everything, but 7.5 is a lot of points. That's why I'll be taking TCU.
All right. Thank you, Joe, for your thoughts on the Michigan TCU game. You agree with me. You have Michigan winning, but TCU covering. So we both like Michigan to win outright. TCU plus 7.5 and under 58.5. Now we move on to the second game, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between number 1 Georgia SEC champ versus number 4 Ohio State 11-1. Did not win the Big Ten, as that was Michigan. This was the only, or them and TCU, I guess, were both at large teams, weren't teams that won their conference title this year. This game is on at 8 p.m. will be after the Michigan TCU game on ESPN. Georgia minus 6.5 over under 62. We'll go through our keys to the game as well as our final breakdown and prediction at the end as well, just like we did in the first one. My key to the game for Georgia. It sounds pretty simple, but it's get up big and stay up big. Don't make Stetson Bennett have to go out there and make plays in a close game. This is a Georgia team that has just been used to blowing teams out all year, won every single game this year by double digits except one. That was a 4-point road victory at Mizzou, and then they beat Kentucky 16-6 at home, I believe it was, or it could have been on the road, but 16-6 in that game. Those are the two really only close games this year. They did beat Tennessee by 14, but they were in control for most of that game. This is just a team that doesn't know how to really win coming from behind. They're not a team that is built to do that. They have to get up big and stay up big. You don't want to be down in the third quarter and then force Stetson Bennett to go out there throwing the ball around. He is a game manager. He still has a lot of good weapons with Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, two absolute studs who can make plays, but you don't want him to be throwing the ball 35, 40, 50 times a game in a comeback effort. That's just not who he is. He's built to be a game manager and play that way with all the talent around him. Let them all do the work. You don't want to force him to go out there and start making plays. So, like I said, a team that has been used to winning and winning big all year, keep that formula going. Bank on that defense. You don't want to get down early. I think if you're Georgia, you want to find a way to get the ball first, hopefully go down, get a long drive, consume up a lot of the clock, and really just set the tempo on that one. You don't want Ohio State to have the chance to get up 7-0, 10-0, and then kind of force Georgia to come back from behind and start throwing the football around the yard. So if I'm Georgia, I want to get the ball. I want to start fast, get up big, stay up big, and don't put the pressure all in Stetson Bennett's hands to make a comeback effort in this one. And then my key to the game for Ohio State is going to be true sophomore wide receiver. A lot of pressure on him in this one, but I think if he has a good game in this one, the Buckeyes stand a real chance to upset Georgia. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. winning his battles against the Georgia secondary. I think he's going to get a lot of different looks and a lot of different coverages thrown at him in this game, but I think he was the best receiver in the country this season, and I think he's going to put that on display on the biggest stage this weekend. Dominated the Big Ten as a true sophomore, went for 72 catches, 1,100 yards, and 12 touchdowns, and he's looking like a surefire top 10 pick come next year's NFL draft when he's eligible. Now he's playing arguably the best defense in the country in Georgia. You can argue, I think, either them or Michigan, who he's already seen Michigan and had some pretty good numbers in that one as well. These are probably the two top units in the country. He gets a chance to play against both, but he's probably going to see a lot of Keeley Ringo in this one, top 10 projected pick, cornerback out of Georgia. But like I said, I think they're going to throw a bunch of different looks at him and try and make other guys beat him. But he's really the key to this team, especially in the passing game. We know Ohio State wants to air it out and chuck it around, and they benefit from this being in the playoff here in an indoor environment. They get the chance to play in a controlled weather tempo and just have a chance to go out there with C.J. Stroud and throw the ball around the yard. They're going to have plenty of opportunities. Marvin Harrison Jr. just has to go out there and win his battles against the Georgia secondary in this one. A lot easier said than done. A lot of NFL players littered across that defense, but it's going to be the key, I think, for Ohio State. Marvin Harrison's going to have a very good game, like a 8-catch, 125, 130 yard, and a touchdown or 2 type performance to win this one. And then he's going to have his fellow receivers, which are all more than capable. It seems like Ohio State and like Alabama are the wide receiver U nowadays. But Jackson Smith and Jigba not playing this one due to that hamstring injury. So it's going to be big for Harrison to step up this one against his loaded Georgia secondary. If he's able to do that, gives Ohio State a real chance to win this football game. But with all that being said, my official game breakdown and prediction for this one, I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to take Ohio State to win this football game 34-31 over Georgia. As I said with my key with Stetson Bennett, I think Ohio State, if they get up early and they're able to score maybe on that first drive, put a little bit of pressure on Georgia, get up 7-0, get up 10-0, that puts a lot of pressure on Georgia and forces them to play from behind, which they're not used to, makes them uncomfortable. And as we've kind of seen on these big stages, when these higher ranked and more, I guess, elite teams for that season get behind and they start to hit the panic button a little bit, that's where you catch them off guard. And all these teams are going to be coming into this one a little bit rusty as well as well rested. So you should be able getting your best from kind of both of these teams health wise for the most part. But there is going to be some rust. I don't think you can count on Georgia or Ohio State to both come out there and look their best right away. But CJ Stroud just having the chance to kind of redeem himself after disappointing against Michigan back-to-back years. I think this is a big prove-it game for him. He wants to prove that he could be that number one pick and be cemented as a top-level Ohio State quarterback in history. He said it himself. He's never going to be that with those 2 losses to Michigan, but if you can go out here and win a national title, that would certainly move him up the list a little bit more than where he think he might be right now. So I like Ohio State to win this one. I think they get up early, force Georgia and Stetson Bennett to get away from their game plan, force them to play from behind, and we see them play a little bit uncomfortable. I think Marvin Harrison goes out there, shows that he's the best receiver in the country, and like I said, I think Ohio State's got a lot of motivation to play from behind in this one, or play with kind of a chip on their shoulder in this one, and I think they're going to go out there and pull off the upset. I know the big talk about this one is Ohio State's soft, Georgia's tough, but I think these last few weeks at practice, I know you can't really breed toughness into these guys like that, but that's got to be something that's just been instilled and drilled into their mind day after day after day. People are calling you soft, and no one likes to be called soft. I think that's kind of what drives Ohio State over the top in this one. They find a way to win with all this talent. Ohio State 34, Georgia 31, Ohio State plus 6.5, over 62. We will head over to Joe now for his predictions. But as always, Ryan Coyle here signing off. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back with one more college football episode, the college football title preview, to wrap up this slate in 2022. Thank you, everyone, for listening along the way. Make sure to tune in for Joe's last-second picks, and we will talk next week for the big game, for the title game. Enjoy New Year's Eve, enjoy New Year's, and enjoy these great football games that we have on tap. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we will talk soon.
Switching gears here to the second playoff game, number 1 Georgia 13-0 versus number 4 Ohio State 11-1 in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That's 8:00 game. That's the later game. Spread is Georgia minus 6.5, over under 62. My key to the game for Georgia, just get after Stroud. It's pretty easy to think, they don't have as many keys as Ohio State has just because they're so strong at so many positions. They really are the top dog. They're the standard in college football right now. They're going to become the next Alabama. If you get Stroud uncomfortable, Ohio State, they've shown that they fade away in physical games. You saw it against Michigan on Thanksgiving weekend. They don't like to play smash mouth football. They want to be putting up a ton of points. If that O-line gets embarrassed, they're going to quit. If they start feeling the game slipping away from them, they're going to quit. They did that against their biggest rivals in Michigan because they were embarrassed. They were at home. They were getting smoked and just outmanned, and you saw them quit. Now, the key for Ohio State, I'll try to keep it just one big key because there's a lot, because this Georgia team seems seemingly unstoppable. But the key for them would be to control the tempo. And I know, that was the strategy in the game plan for when they played Michigan. And I know Nate Kreitzer is going to, be after my ass on Twitter and stuff for even suggesting that Michigan isn't going to win the national title. And then Ohio State, doing the same thing against Michigan probably isn't going to work against Georgia. But Georgia has lived on controlling the tempo the past 2 seasons. If they can't control the tempo, it's going to be really interesting to see what Ohio State does and if they can hang around. But that being said, I'm going Georgia 37, Ohio State 30. So I am taking Georgia minus 6.5. I think, the spread not being at 7.5, with that hook is going to be big. I can see Georgia winning this game by a touchdown. I'm actually taking the over, which I really don't like. But I feel like this is going to be one of those games where if Georgia wants to beat Ohio State, they're going to have to score a lot of points. I think they're going to step up. They're just more talented at basically every position besides maybe quarterback. Stetson Bennett was a Heisman finalist, even though, there was a lot of debate on whether he should have been there or not in New York. That being said, give me the Bulldogs by 7. I know my brother is not going to like that pick. He's, pulling for Ohio State. He has Ohio State over Michigan, actually, to win the whole thing. But that being said, go Bulldogs, winning this game by a touchdown, setting up a rematch from last year's semifinal, which would just be a fantastic game. 2 physical teams. That's something, Coyle and I will get into next week. We will definitely be doing a live show, not this, me coming to you and being edited into the show. I'm looking forward to that. Hope you all have a happy new year. See you guys next week.